Hello and welcome to WhatKeepsYouAwake.tv. It's time again to dive into the hustles, the hurdles, and the highs that keep small business leaders up at night. I'm your host, David Hooser, and I'm incredibly fortunate to welcome today's guest, Joan Koerber-Walker.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here. Her career spans 5 decades of engaging global leaders to invest in Arizona's tech startup community. Her influence felt by 365,000 Arizona entrepreneurs. That's incredible.
And they all call it dinner time.
That's right. They're my family. But even a person of Joan's pedigree misses her mark on occasion. And in her case, it's retirement. Keeps eluding you, right?
3-time failure, I just given up.
It's just not coming. It's
not happening.
We're not reaching that goal. Well, Joan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And, your career has been very impressive. And the community is really lucky to have you leading these discussions.
Wow, this community helped me to get to where I am. So this is my way of helping back a little bit anyway. So let's get started with you on our foundational questions. So tell me, as a leader in Arizona's health innovation community, what keeps you awake at night?
So what keeps me awake is for all of the things that we can do today with health innovations, there's so much we can't. And while I'm awake thinking about how we will get more things to patients, there's a mother, father, child that's laying awake, waiting for us to get the job done.
You know, it's interesting. I listen to a lot of podcasts now. I obviously have professional interest in it, but I was listening recently to a podcast about the FDA testing, and so many of the new drugs that are trying to become available, they have to do these blind,
double-blind placebo studies. Yeah,
that's it. And the struggles are with that type of testing is you have to give someone that knowingly has an issue a placebo, like you're saying. And so during the process to get approval, you're literally potentially leaving some individuals behind. So to that point, that waiting for the technologies to develop or get approval for use in the U.S.
And making them available. And we can, talk about some of the changes that are happening right now in public policy that may make some of these treatments secures less available. But, the thing that's really important, and I do want to just clarify on the placebo-based trials. So what we call double-blind studies is you're going to look at the standard of care versus the new proposed medicine. And so to use an example of a cancer drug, we're not giving the cancer patient nothing. We're giving the cancer patient what the standard of care is. Right. And then the other patients will be getting something that might be better. Right. And that's what we're trying to prove. So I do want to be very clear that in most cases, we are not, leaving someone out. The exception would be the things like the COVID clinical trials. So, and I was actually in one of those COVID vaccine trials. And so in that case, either you got a vaccine or you got a saline shot. Right. And you didn't know until they, quote unquote, unblinded you later. And so that is something where we truly did have a have and have not situation. But in most cases, there is a standard of care, and it's the standard of care compared to the new treatment.
And is that same kind of process for the technology side of the biohealth industry?
So when we're talking about med tech, right? Okay. So there are different standards for different types of med tech. So for instance, if you're going to have a medical appliance that's linked to your watch, okay, that is a lower standard that you have to meet than if you're doing a pacemaker that's going to be implanted in the human body. And so there are different levels and different standards of testing based on how that process works. And the idea of the FDA, right, the concept of why it was created is to make sure that these medicines or these medical devices are safe and effective,
Gotcha.
right? And so all of that testing is based around those standards.
And how do you think that'll change? How will you see that with the current administration? A lot of discussion on changing that.
There's a lot of discussion on change, and I do want to preface my remarks by saying I have not spoken with Secretary Kennedy and I have not spoken with the president on this. But we do share information with the administration so that they can make good choices. And we saw, for instance, at the FDA that there was a probationary employees got riffed along with lots of other federal workers. And the industry, shared with the administration, we have a law that includes the user fee agreements where we pay fees to the FDA to do the clinical trials, right? Just like you pay fees to have a building inspected when you're building a building. And so if the administration lays off the people, then that's $30 billion in fees that they're not going to see. And they brought the people back.
That's right.
So when you are communicating with our elected leaders and explaining the impacts of what they're doing, sometimes they stick to their guns and sometimes they pivot, just like entrepreneurs do.
Just like, and many cases have to. Right?
Have to.
It's out of necessity. And that's something we talk about in almost every episode is, it's easy to have a passion and want to follow that passion, but sometimes you have to, it's necessary to be ready and able to make that change, that transition. Your path could take you in different directions and to your benefit, not to your detriment. Staying the course may be to your detriment. So entrepreneurs have to be ready. And that's hard. It's hard.
It is hard. And not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. And I think we do people a disservice sometimes in saying, you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to go out there. And I talk to a lot of students. And when I speak with those students, I say, I didn't become an entrepreneur until I had been, learning in business for almost 20 years. And so when I made that leap into entrepreneurship, I was financially stable. I had learned how to build a business, and the business I had been in had grown from $500 million to $20 billion during the time I was there. So I understood what it means to scale. I understood what those hardships were. And that became very important.
And I had that luck. I had that fortune to grow through back in that time before I took on and really did my first real entrepreneurial project or startup. I had Motorola's, environment of Six Sigma, don't help drive me and prepare me for some things that other entrepreneurs, don't see coming. So I agree with that. Not everyone should be. Not everyone should go to college. Not everyone should, but sometimes you should try. And I say work as a part-time project, hobby, or a second, career, second job.
It's funny, when I left that Fortune 500 company, I had this mission, right? I was going to go out and I was going to teach the entrepreneurs everything I knew about business. And they loved it, but they couldn't afford to pay me for it.
Right. That's right.
And so the model that we established in that company, which still exists, is called Core Purpose, is you have to have a Venn diagram. And that is what you're passionate about, what you're good at. And then the most important is what people will pay you for.
What they'll pay for.
And if you don't have that third one, you don't have a business. You have a hobby.
You have a hobby. That's right. And you'll have fun, but you won't make a lot of money.
But you won't make a lot of money.
And so you have to, if you're in business, the point of business is to generate profitable income.
Mhm.
or cash flow. So yeah, well, so tell us a little more about the early days. So you did leave corporate America.
Yeah, I left, the corner office with the assistants and, the corporate credit card and all of those things. And I had a job where I was dealing with the leaders of Motorola and the leaders of Texas Instruments and many, many of those companies. And at that time, right, when I was employed with my employer, if I called their office, I got put through. When I went out on my own, it took 3 or 4 calls to get put through. And that was a rude awakening, which was that my brand was tied to my employer.
Right.
And I had to go out and build a whole new brand.
Who are
And
you now?
and
Right.
why is it important to talk
Right.
to me?
Why should they take their time? Because
Yep.
everyone's busy. You and I are, I mean, I'm functionally retired and I'm as busy as I ever was.
Mhm.
But I just love talking to people. So if you call me, I'll certainly try to answer the call. But so how did things get going? If you're out helping entrepreneurs was kind of the core function that you were
Mhm.
trying to pursue.
So what I did is, serendipity is really important. So someone said to me, "You need to talk to Francine Hardaway. She made the transition from business owner to big business and back to business owner again. She can help you and she's really well connected." And so Francine took me under her wing and helped me understand that I could still help the entrepreneurs locally, but I also had to have a healthy business. So I did the consulting with the big businesses that I
Gotcha.
knew.
Gotcha.
They paid the bills. And then I worked in the community on a volunteer
So like a
basis
pro bono.
and helped people that way. And so I was able to satisfy my passion for helping entrepreneurs, but also have a fiscally viable business.
That makes sense. And then how did the association grow out of that?
So I did not. So my day job today, I sit on multiple boards and have businesses and things, but the one that takes most of my time is the Arizona Bioindustry Association, or AZBio. So AZBio is a 501c6. So think of it kind of like a chamber. We have members. Okay. AZBio's members are 300 companies here in Arizona that employ over 365,000 Arizonans. And they are all working to make life better for you and I by making sure that treatments and cures that already exist get to the patients that need them. But equally important, those new ideas, those new treatments and cures, those new therapies that might keep us healthy or help us when we get sick, that they get to market too. And so that's what AZBio is all about.
Okay. And what's some of the examples, like one of the recent examples of projects that you were instrumental in helping to come to fruition?
So probably the one that is really exciting goes back to my entrepreneurial passion. So remember, I mentioned Francine Hardaway.
Mhm.
So in 2005, Francine, along with Ed Nussbaum and Rob Dunaway, created the Opportunity Through Entrepreneurship Foundation. And their goal was to help at-risk people, people coming out of prison, people that don't have education, people that didn't have opportunity, to look at entrepreneurship as a path to raising themselves up.
Right.
And so what we found very quickly was that there was not, again, that appetite. Most people couldn't even spell entrepreneur back in the early 2000s. And so we figured, okay, we have to do something about that. We would engage the local community. So we're of a generation where we grew up on these old movies where they would say, we've got to save the farm. Let's do a show in the barn. So that's what we did. We created the first Arizona Entrepreneurship Conference. And Michael Gerber, who was kind of the big name in entrepreneurship at the time, was a friend. He flew in, keynoted the conference. We had over 350 people. And that funded the operations to help the other people for an entire year. We did that for 8 years, bringing in entrepreneurial thought leaders from all over the country with Arizona entrepreneurs so that they could be exposed to those ideas. And then in 2014, the entrepreneurial ecosystem had really started to blossom in Arizona. And we didn't need to do that anymore because everybody else was doing it.
Right.
And so we went back to helping individual entrepreneurs. But then in 2014, we said, okay, well, what's that next big thing? And at that point, I was at AZBio. And as chairman of the board, I went to the board and said, why don't we start focusing on the life sciences? Because not only are these entrepreneurial opportunities, but they create jobs that are 50% higher in income than the national average. So let's get people involved in that. And so we started off small, right? Entrepreneurs, you need to learn. You start off small and you build. We started off creating the student discovery zones. And the student discovery zones are where students get to come to AZBio events and present their science
Right.
to business leaders.
Right.
So at a university, there's a poster session. You might have 25 people there. At the student discovery zone, you've got 650 business leaders looking at this stuff that these kids are doing. And they're brilliant young people. And so then a little bit later during COVID, when we had to pivot and do it all online, we added a scholarship component. And now the students are back in person again, but they're competing for small scholarships. And we've had over 1,500 students go through that program.
That's incredible. That's a great success. And, you know, technology has really taken a foothold in Arizona. Organizations, now we have the Taiwan semiconductor fabs coming here. Now, we've always had a presence from the early Motorola days to when I was with Motorola, it was the number one employer in the state. And now that's completely,
now it's Banner
transitioned.
Health.
Yeah. So now it's healthcare, but a lot of technology relating to whether it's healthcare or other industries. So it's good to see the presence here and how Phoenix, which, in Scottsdale, where I grew, spent most of my time here, is not just about tourism. It's technology. Yeah. It's a growing, vibrant city. So it's great to see.
When he was mayor, Jim Lane really bought into the concept. And he, branded Scottsdale's Cure Corridor. And you've got some amazing healthcare institutions along that corridor, as well as some great life science companies.
Right.
And, in the city of Phoenix, the mayor likes to say that the city of Phoenix benefited the most from the thing they lost. And this is something that's a good lesson for our entrepreneurs, too. So the Phoenix Bioscience Core is 30 acres in downtown Phoenix that includes TGen, soon 2 medical schools, hundreds of entrepreneurs, lots of things going on in the life sciences. But initially, that was supposed to be the Cardinals Stadium.
Right.
And when they lost the stadium bid to Glendale, they had to figure out what to do with that asset. And they re-envisioned it as the bioscience campus. It is now the core hub of 5 life science hubs just in the city of Phoenix. And there's over 8 million square feet of new life science infrastructure in development just in Phoenix. Now, I don't know about you. It's hard for me to figure out what 8 million square feet looks like.
Right.
But most of us have flown through Sky Harbor Terminal 4. Okay. So 8 million square feet is 4 Terminal 4s.
Yeah. It's incredible. So things have changed quite a bit in the Valley, and certainly you've contributed to that and having, the influence over the number of entrepreneurs and projects, startup projects and investment dollars. You should be very proud of what you've accomplished. So.
Thank you, but the credit really goes to them.
Well, I have truly enjoyed the time that we've spent here, and hopefully we can keep going in another episode. But for now, let's wrap up and give you an opportunity to do what I call a shameless plug on projects, on companies, on how to reach you.
All right. Well, let's do that then. So, first of all, your listeners can learn more about the life sciences here in Arizona by going to azbio.org. And on there, they will find videos, they will find stories, all of the latest news, conversations, and most importantly, check out the events tab because in October, we have Arizona Bioscience Week. There's 5 days of events where people can get involved.
Okay. And so if you have an idea, you could come in and talk to people about the idea that could help stimulate interest in that idea and support, because too many times entrepreneurs, they go it alone, right? And they don't need to. With organizations like yours and the growing activities in the Valley around biotech and other tech and other industry activities here in the Valley. There's a lot of support out there.
Yes,
So
and
go
this
ask.
is an industry where you cannot succeed alone.
Alone. Right. So, all right. Well, thank you again for being here. And everyone out there, thanks again for tuning in. And remember, like or subscribe to our podcast, whatkeepsyouawake.tv, on your favorite platform. And we'll see you on a future episode.
Absolutely.